Again, good morning and welcome. I think we're really excited. We're really enjoying all these briefings that we're having. Face-to-face events are now becoming the norm, especially after the pandemic. We were cooped up in our houses. But again, this energy is reverberating. And when you talk about energy, what we're seeing is that the Philippine economy has also been expanding, 6.3% in the first quarter of this year, making the Philippines the second fastest growing economy in Southeast Asia. And the forecasts are looking very good, 5.8 to 7%. Again, this will likely make the Philippines, again, one of the fastest, if not the fastest, growing economy in Southeast Asia. But when I talk about economic recovery, there will be no economic recovery that will be complete without remittances. And the OFWs continue to be deployed. And in 2023, they sent in $37 billion in remittances. That's the biggest amount ever received by the Philippines. And again, this continues to fuel retail and residential requirements across the Philippines. The forecasts, 3% growth this year. So imagine that, another $38 billion that will be infused to the Philippine economy. And if you look at these regions, so outside of Metro Manila, you have Central Luzon, Calabarzon, Central Visayas, Western Visayas, Davao region. And it's no longer surprising to see all these developers aggressively land banking, developing in these key regions across the Philippines. They account for what? 91% of total residential loans granted by Philippine banks. So again, it's no longer surprising to see all these property firms developing all these massive townships, master planned communities across the country. The only concern is that while Filipinos continue to send money to their loved ones here in the Philippines, inflation is again inching up, 4.4%. That's the latest inflation print. And if you look at the basic policy rate, 6.5%. The mortgage rate is what? 8.3%. It's still very expensive to borrow money from banks and finance your residential requirement. The good news is that unemployment situation is improving and even better than the pre-pandemic unemployment that we have seen across the country. Now, I mentioned economic recovery. There is no economic rebound that will be complete without infrastructure. The Build Better More initiative of the government, sustained, strategic, on-schedule implementation that President Marcos highlighted in his previous SONA. You have major projects, subway, 450 billion pesos, the biggest project ever approved by the government, MRT 7. You saw Skyway 3 being completed, and this really benefits a lot of commuters, professionals that are traveling from northern Luzon all the way down to southern Luzon. So again, there's really a lot of optimism. We're now seeing ramped up infrastructure spending, 5 to 6% of our country's GDP being allocated on public projects. In absolute terms, that translates to about 1 trillion pesos every year. And again, if we continue to attract a lot of foreign direct investments, if we want those FDIs, and of course, as you can see, CDC President, Ms. Attorney Agnes De Venaderas here, of course, they want to attract a lot of foreign direct investments. We want to make sure that the Philippines remains attractive. We want to build our infrastructure so that when we compare the Philippines pound for pound versus our Asian neighbors, we become part of top 1/3 of all economies surveyed. If there are 120 countries covered by a survey, then we should be part of top 40. Because if you are a foreign investor, will you invest in a country that fares disappointingly in this global competitiveness surveys? Of course, you're unlikely to invest. That's why if we want to corner these investments, we want to make sure that we remain competitive. So let me now shift to the residential sector, one of the most attractive real estate segments in the Philippines. All over Metro Manila, we have 159,000 condominium units, and 3 major business hubs account for 70% of that supply. These are Makati CBD, Fort Bonifacio, and the Bay Area. The Bay Area used to play catch-up. And I remember 2016, of course, it's still pales in comparison to residential supply across Metro Manila. It outpaced the total number of condominium units in Ortigas Center mid of 2018. It outpaced Makati CBD's residential supply mid of 2021. And by the third quarter of this year, the Bay Area will have the largest residential stock across Metro Manila, overtaking the Bay Area. 2,000 residential units, condominium projects were completed second quarter of this year, and we will be seeing more for the remainder of the year, 7,100 condominium units, resulting in about 11,300 new condominium units that will be completed across the capital region. So if you look at the average, 2017 to 2019, 13,000 units were completed during that period. This is a period influenced by the POGO demand. So developers really ramped up their completion. But 2024, well, 11,300. You're probably asking, why are we seeing more projects when we're already seeing the POGO exodus? Well, note that these are the projects that were launched at the height of the POGO demand in 2018 and 2019. So only 8,000 units will now be completed every year from 2024 up to 2026. One problem for the Metro Manila residential market is that vacancy is starting to inch up again. Note that in 2021, that was a period when we saw vacancy resulting in about 17.9%, meaning if you have 100 condo units either for sale or for lease, 18 are vacant. And while we saw some improvement 2022, 2023, we are likely to see vacancy again inching up to 17.7 by the end of this year. So we're now nearing the record high vacancy in Metro Manila of 17.9% in 2021, mainly because of a sizable completion turnover of units across the capital region. So you're probably asking, well, given this sizable supply in the Bay Area, what will now happen to this business district? Well, right now, vacancy in the Bay Area, 28%. And given the POGO exodus, the ban imposed by President Marcos, vacancy in the Bay Area will likely double to 55%. The good news is that prices and rents are starting to recover. 2% increase from 2024 up to 2026. That is our projection. And even rents are also starting to recover. 2%, 3% increase annually from 2024 up to 2026. Now, this is a major concern for developers across the capital region because launches and take-up, which represents demand, are also slowing down. 6,000 units taken up in the first half of 2024. If you annualize that, only 12,000 units are likely to be sold in the pre-selling market. And this is even lower than the pre-pandemic or the pandemic low in 2021 of only about 13,000 units being sold in the pre-selling sector in Metro Manila. Very good news is that you have developers such as RLC Residences, of course, which are doing very well. These are, of course, projects that have very good take-up. Some of them already sold out. And again, there's optimism, especially based on what we are seeing right now. While we believe that the mid-income segment is facing some challenges, it is the upscale and luxury segments that are performing very well. I had to make sure that I'm aligned with RLC Residences. And in fact, I watched Mr. Sotelo's ANC interview with Mimi Ong. And again, overall, across the capital region, we are seeing substantial launches. We're seeing sizable number of ready for occupancy units still yet to be absorbed in the market. So are we seeing a sea change? Because for developers that were previously focused on Metro Manila, we're now seeing them launching aggressively outside of the capital region. Central Luzon, Southern Luzon, Central Visayas, Western Visayas, Davao region, Northern Mindanao. We're seeing developers aggressively partnering with local partners, Shang Properties, Hong Kong Land, and we believe that this will likely be the norm moving forward, especially if you want your projects to stand out in the market. We're also seeing the viability of resort, leisure-themed projects. When you go outside of Metro Manila, you're seeing these resort-themed projects priced at what? 220, 300,000 pesos per square, 600,000 pesos per square for a project in Cebu. But these are almost sold out, if not sold out. These are even more expensive than the projects that we have right now in Metro Manila. And overall, for the residential market, the trend is launching purchasing units within an integrated community, master planned projects. The live, work, play, shop lifestyle is very essential at this point. And again, if you look at the remaining ready for occupancy inventory, it is the upscale to luxury segment that still corners much of the demand. As a result, only 6% of ready for occupancy units that are unsold are coming from these two segments, upscale and luxury. Again, some examples that we're seeing in the market right now, but these two segments, while we're seeing some challenges in the mid-income segment, these are the price segments that are performing well at this point, even compelling some developers to launch second towers of their new residential projects across the capital region. But while we're seeing the upscale and luxury segments continuously increasing in terms of price per square, for example, our most expensive in Metro Manila, $13,000 per square. The most expensive in Bangkok is about twice more expensive. The most expensive in Hong Kong is about 13 times more expensive than our most expensive. What does that indicate? There's still a room for further expansion of prices in the Philippines. We're barely scratching the surface. Again, joint venture firms continue to proliferate and dominate in the market, and these are doing very well. These are not, of course, some of the more affordable. They are some of the higher priced residential projects. But as you can see here, they're doing very well. Take up of 60%, 80%. And again, this will likely be the trend moving forward for Philippine developers. You know, at Colliers, we see a lot of foreign developers aggressively partnering, looking for Philippine companies to partner with. So again, I mentioned earlier infrastructure, and we believe that the government's infrastructure push, build better, more, or previously build, will dictate the strategies of developers moving forward. If you look at projects, for example, in Central Luzon, you have CC Lex, you have Skyway 3, you have North-South Commuter Railway, compelling developers to launch massive townships, integrated developments, 50 hectares, 75 hectares, 100 hectares. And this is also the trend, not just in Luzon, but also in Visayas, especially Bacolod, Iloilo, Cebu, or Mindanao, Davao, Cagayan de Oro, even Zamboanga. So there's a lot of optimism. In fact, we're seeing stable demand for horizontal. At Colliers, we in fact say this, that the appetite for horizontal remains unequivocal. And this only indicates that there's a sustained, stable take-up for horizontal projects, especially for the 5 major regions that we cover, which include Central Luzon, Calabarzon, Central Visayas, Western Visayas, and Davao region. In fact, if you look at the prices of these house and lot-only projects, they are growing by about what? 5 to 15% annually from 2016 to 2023. What we have observed is that developers are aggressively acquiring lot-only developments, because one trend that we're seeing, which was highlighted by the pandemic, is a greater demand take up for bigger spaces, greener spaces. And again, Previously at Colliers, we would do surveys during our webinars, and a lot of our respondents really choosing residential projects that offer this bigger, more open spaces. And because of this unequivocal demand for horizontal development, we see a lot of developers aggressively looking for parcels of developable land. Again, these are the major regions that are recording cornering stable demand: Central Luzon, Calabarzon, Central Visayas, Western Visayas, Davao region, and Northern Mindanao. This is one of my favorite slides. It basically provides a snapshot of how the Philippine property market performed over the past few years. And again, if you look at the property market, it is, of course, cyclical, somehow indicative, reflective of how the economy performs. We saw that at the height of the Asian financial crisis in 97, 98, global financial crisis, 2008, 2009. Of course, COVID-19 pandemic in 2020, when the Philippine economy did not grow, but even contracted by 9.5%. But as you can see here clearly, as the economy recovers, the prices of properties across the country also start to improve. Again, if you look at previous administrations, we have observed that during their first year, property prices of property projects in the Philippines increase. And that is a stable, a formidable increase, 3%, 4%, 8% even during their first year in administration. And that holds a lot of promise, especially for this administration that has recorded a stable growth during its first year into office, 4% increase in prices across the Philippines. So hopefully we sustain this, but overall what we're seeing in the market is gradual recovery in terms of rents and prices. Also, we are seeing greater take-up for upscale luxury projects. Why? Because it is a very good hedge against inflation. If you have inflation of 6% and your properties increase by 8, 10, 12% every year, they are definitely very good hedges against the prices of basic commodities. We're seeing developers implementing flexible payment terms, 78, 84 months. We're no longer seeing the short-term, the down payment terms. And this is one of the major factors that helps stoke demand, especially in the pre-selling sector. Also, we're seeing bespoke amenities. We're seeing a lot of co-working spaces, bespoke high concierge services, resort-like pools, safety and security. A lot of developers are integrating AI into their condominium developments, property technology, prop tech. In fact, if you are in a condominium unit now, you can even monitor your blood pressure, a lot of other processes, and we believe that, again, this is likely to be the norm because a lot of property firms are trying to integrate these new AI features so that they entice residential investors, especially as they are now trying to entice more Filipinos to invest in a condo as the Philippine property market recovers. So this is just a snapshot of the residential sector. Again, we're seeing slower take-up in the pre-selling sector in Metro Manila, but that is being offset by greater demand for house and lot-only projects outside of the capital region. OFWs continue to send in money, and that will continue to propel the Philippine property market. If you look at developers, they are launching resort leisure-themed projects, and that will, of course, hinge on the recovery of the travel and tourism sector. But let me now shift to the office sector. Mike said that I have a lot of slides on office. However, I only have one slide which I can explain, and I can churn out the figures. Let me try. But again, if you look at the office market, the Bay Area will likely be hit by the POGO exodus. Right now, the Bay Area is one of the major business districts in Metro Manila that still corners much of POGO-occupied office space. At the height of the POGO demand in 2019, these offshore gaming companies from China occupied 1.3 million square meters of office space, representing 10% of total leasable office space in Metro Manila. Right now, that is down to 450,000 square meters, and this is only about 3.5% of gross leasable office space in Metro Manila. What we're seeing is that government agencies continue to occupy substantial, massive office spaces across Metro Manila. NBI, DFA, DTI, occupying office spaces in Buendia, in the Bay Area. And this will, of course, help revivify, resuscitate the challenging office sector right now. Even co-working spaces are doing well. So recently, we saw expansions by Figari, KMC Solutions, Regius. And in fact, this is one sub-segment of the office sector that has been benefiting from the implementation of work from anywhere. At the height of the pandemic in 2020, vacancy in the office market, in the flexible space market, was 40%. That is down to 20%, meaning we're now seeing greater take-up of co-working spaces across the capital region. Now, hotel sector remains resilient. We are now seeing the doubling up of occupancies. At the height of the pandemic, there were essentially no travelers. That's why hotel occupancies a meager 20%. That is up to 63% so far this year, first half of this year. 2024 will be a record high, a record year for completion. This will be a banner year. Why? Because 4,600 new hotel rooms will be completed across Metro Manila. About 2,400 new hotel rooms will be completed every year from 2024 up to 2026, and about 40% of those are foreign brands. So that is really exciting. A lot of foreign travelers as well as domestic tourists. And again, we're seeing more MICE events. In fact, we want to host Taylor Swift here in the Philippines, and a lot of developers are trying to corner that demand. They're building massive convention centers in their master plan townships across the country. And hopefully, of course, we see Taylor Swift live here in the Philippines. In fact, this is the title of my Business World column yesterday. But if you look at other sectors, the industrial segment remains resilient. We continue to be hot on cold storage, meaning we're seeing brisk take-up of cold chain facilities, mainly because the Philippines is an F&B driven, personal consumption-driven economy. 75% of our economy is coming from personal consumption. We're also seeing strong pre-leasing of modern warehouses, of these high-end, high-tech storage facilities, especially in major industrial locations in central and southern Luzon. And again, we are seeing new industrial space, about 100 hectares of new industrial space every year, especially in the Cavite, Laguna, Batangas region. The retail sector is very resilient. If you go to a mall outside of working hours, office hours, during weekends, they are packed to the rafters. And we believe that this will entice more foreign operators, foreign retailers such as No Brand, for example, to continue expanding and occupying brick and mortar space across Metro Manila and even across the Philippines. We're seeing the popularity of transit-oriented retail centers across the Philippines. But what we have been seeing is that developers are aggressively, massively expanding, renovating, and innovating their retail centers across the country. And this is very important to to be in the business, to remain afloat despite challenges in our economy, in the global economy, especially with high interest and inflation rate environments. This is very important for a lot of retail players and even mall operators. They need to innovate and renovate, otherwise they will evaporate and dissipate. So that is practically a snapshot of the retail sector. But if you saw President Marcos's last State of the Nation address, we're very optimistic because he highlighted the ease of doing business, which is very important for the Philippines to continue attracting foreign investments. The strategic implementation, on schedule implementation, building of infrastructure projects, and also he highlighted upskilling of local employees. This is important because if you want to entice more outsourcing companies that occupy office space, we need to keep our advantage, especially in terms of speaking and writing the English language. Tourism was also highlighted, the multifaceted approach in terms of promoting it. Of course, OFWs will continue to be prioritized, and given that OFWs continue to send in $39 billion in remittances, they will continue to propel residential demand across the Philippines, especially the 2.5 to 7 million pesos per residential unit. We call it the sweet spot for the OFW residential demand. And again, he also addressed the costly, inefficient power supply in the Philippines. And this is very important for a lot of foreign locators, especially within industrial parks and free port zones. If you are a manufacturing facility, a data center, for example, it's important that when you locate here in the Philippines, we have very attractive power rates across the country. So overall, we believe that for developers to remain relevant, recalibration is important. Recalibration is crucial to quelling extinction, whether you're from the office, residential, retail, hotel, or industrial segments. It's important that you pivot and modify your business strategy. You need to challenge the status quo, especially right now that we're seeing the proliferation, the attractiveness of more Filipino property hotspots across the Philippines, outside of Metro Manila. The Philippines, we want to make sure that we remain an attractive property investment destination, not just in terms of BPOs, but also we want to attract more foreign property companies to develop, partner with local property players here in the country. We're seeing a lot of news recently about POGOs, about offshore gaming companies. But hopefully, once the dust settles, we really realize what are the demand drivers, what are the growth factors that will be here for the long haul, our economic growth, our economic sweet spot, the demographic sweet spot. We have a very young millennial workforce. The average age of the Philippines is 25, Japan 45, Thailand 40. And this young millennial workforce will continue to drive the growth of the Philippine economy beyond 2024. So despite all these news that we're seeing about the offshore gaming companies from China, I hope we don't go loco over POGO, because we are seeing the real demand drivers in the market, and they will be pivotal to our growth, to the growth of the Philippine economy and property in the near to medium term. So that concludes my presentation. We have here QR codes of our reports, which you may scan later. Also, we have a Spotify channel, podcast, so you may scan this and give us a follow. If you are waiting for your Starbucks delivery or driving or taking care of your child, you may want to listen. And also, we have a North and Central Luzon in Clark on August 20, and I would like to personally invite Attorney Agnes de Vanadera to please come and listen to our presentation on August 20. We will be talking about Central Luzon and its potential as a property investment destination in the Philippines. Also, Southern Luzon briefing. This will be on August 27. So a lot of programs and activities lined up for Colliers all over the Philippines. We're also on social media, and if you have been living on a farm and developed amnesia, let me remind you that we are active on social media. We're on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, which is now X, and YouTube. So again, thank you for listening, and I hope you learned your thing through from my presentation. Richard.